with us, the legend, Matthew Wallden, osteopath extraordinaire. And Matthew is well known for traveling the world and teaching holistic health. Really, holistic health is the right word. And he lectures to osteopathic conferences. He's worked with Chelsea Premier League team. He works with top leaders in business. And we are here today to have a good chat about health and performance coaching, which Matt delivers for us. And I'm super excited, mate. This is going to be an awesome chat. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Let's do it.
Great.
So, mates, we have an opportunity today to really share with the audience what health and performance coaching is all about, why it's important now and more than ever, and how we really deliver that and help leaders in business to take their health and performance to the next level. So first and foremost, let's have a look at what health and performance coaching really is, and I'd love to get what your definition is of that, and hear what your thoughts are around health and performance coaching.
Sure. Well, I haven't got a specifically defined definition for you, but I can talk about it, and that is that one of the things that struck me through my training is that you can certainly improve performance in the short term without any respect to health. But if you're looking at the long game, then they go hand in hand. They're exactly the same thing ultimately. You cannot improve performance without improving or maintaining health. And so health is really the foundation for all performance. They're really one and the same thing in the long run. So in terms of what health is, this is, of course, some people define it as the absence of disease, but it's much more than that. It's actually about being your sort of optimal self, realizing your potential, feeling on form, being able to essentially perform at your top level. And interesting enough, of course, it's not all about performance. It's also about being able to rest and being able to switch off and being able to eat the right foods, not just grab what's available and so on. So, what I'm giving you a little insight into there is that it has to be holistic. You can't just have someone who's a nutritionist and just support you with your nutrition, or someone who's a trainer just support you with your exercise, or someone who's a performance coach is just looking at the psychology side of it. You really need someone or a team that can integrate all of those factors, and so that's what we do together as a team here. So that's it.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. Of that if one area of your life is not working, then it affects every other area of your life. And I would say, if we point to health, if that area of your life is not functioning and you are not functioning fully, your health and well-being is not functioning, then that is totally affecting every other area of your life. So it really is the base of success that we want to build the house or building upon. The foundation is health.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there's lots of different models that show this, that essentially it's the physiology of the individual that determines their states and determines their emotions and determines the way they feel about themselves, about the world, about their success, etc. And it provides that springboard for optimal performance as well. So again, if you're not eating well, then you're not going to have the energy to perform at an optimal level. But equally, eating can impact on sleep. If you get the wrong kind of balance of macronutrients, then it can impact on sleep. And sleep is absolutely critical for repair and rejuvenation, but also for developing new ideas. So one of the things we know about actually having downtime, and what we call in our system Dr. Quiet, spending some time with Dr. Quiet, that's where your brain reintegrates and reprocesses and starts to essentially piece things together, so you get the bigger picture of what's going on, and that then allows you to make better executive decisions. So there's so kind of talk there about nutrition, we talked a bit about sleep, but then if you sleep well, then you feel like moving, you feel like exercising, you feel like being active, and then when you're active, well, then you sleep better at night and you tend to make better nutritional choices. So everything starts to react, and of course you've also got to be feeling sort of happy and on form and not under too much stress. And that also then improves sleep and improves nutritional choices and so on. But then those improved nutritional choices, improve sleep, improve movement, make you feel happier as well. So, you know, our goal is to work on each of these kind of core tenets of health, and then that raises the overall performance and enjoyment of life.
Brilliant, mate, brilliant. So, you know, I wrote the book, The Evolutionary Leader, and, you know, I interviewed you in the past around the evolution of health.
Yes.
And so as you know, here at Carroll Consultancy Group, we're not just about fixing people. It's way more than that. We're about constant and never-ending improvement, or the evolution of health, I think, is super important. I'd love to pick your brain there on and see if you can help our listeners today understand why it's so important that the journey is the destination and that the process is the goal, and that we focus on evolution rather than on just, okay, I'm going to hit this goal and then stop that. So give us your thoughts on that. That's super important for people to learn about, I think.
Definitely. Well, I think, you know, health is one of those things that you don't notice until you lose it, you know, and I think we've all experienced that, you know, whether it might be we overwork and we get fatigued, or, you know, just coming down with a cold is a good example of that. You feel rough for a few days and you don't really appreciate how you feel most of the time. So I think, you know, in terms of the evolutionary element, we want to minimize those times where you're feeling fatigued or down, and we want to optimize the amount of time that you feel great and that you feel high performing, and that you can realize your potential. So, you know, the way we achieve that is by constantly adapting where you're at in your life in terms of, you know, nutrition. So what you and I might eat today, which might be optimal for our physiology today, perhaps it's a lower stress day, perhaps it's summertime, perhaps it's, you know, we got a good night's sleep last night. That's going to be a different nutritional requirement to the middle of winter when there's really high stress, and you know, perhaps you're traveling internationally or something. You might need different tools and tricks. And so as life kind of passes by and we meet different challenges, we need to develop new tools and constantly evolve ourselves. And of course, you know, performance, whether you're looking at that from a mental perspective or a physical perspective, that changes through life as well. And we know, for example, that, you know, testosterone in men and women, because we all have testosterone, but it decreases every decade by about 14%. Okay. So what that means is that, of course, as you head into your middle years, maybe your 40s or your 50s or even your 60s, your testosterone is gradually dropping down and down and down. And that's one of your key anabolic hormones. So there's certain things that will accelerate that process and make it drop perhaps by 20% per year, well, per decade, I should say. And there's certain things you could do which will make it drop perhaps only 10%. So by being in that more healthy cohort and really thinking about and developing your health as you go, you can optimize performance and maintain performance for much longer, as well as adapting, you know. So
yeah, love it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have the Olympics on right now, and you know, also having been an athlete in the past, there is an attitude that you bring as an athlete to the game of performance, and this attitude is really about the, you know, becoming addicted to the process of getting better and falling in love with that process of constant evolution. And, you know, the best athletes in the world are always looking for 1%, the 1% gain that they can get, and incremental growth, right? And so, you know, what we're doing really is we're building corporate athletes, we're building business athletes, we're building entrepreneurial athletes, and we're taking the secrets of success in elite sport and applying them into coaching, and not just not just in health, but also in many other areas. And so, you know, I'm just thinking about, from the perspective of health, this attitude of, you know, that an athlete, an elite athlete, puts health numero uno. There's no doubt. You can't run 100 meters under 10 seconds if you're not healthy.
No.
How does that apply to the corporate world? If we're looking to the corporate world and building corporate athletes, talk to me a little bit about some of the things that athletes do, and how does that translate into business?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, one of the things we always talk about in our way of working is that everyone's an athlete.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether you're stuck in a wheelchair or you're stuck in an office, or you've got an athletic requirement. And for everyone, we live in a field of gravity, and that's no small thing, right? I don't know if you've ever seen like a TV screen inverted when someone jumps off the ground. I remember as a kid watching Batman, right? And they had obviously set up the film studio so that the light was coming out of the floor and the table was on the ceiling. And then Batman's jumping, he's walking on the ceiling and he's jumping, but he gets sucked back up to the ceiling so quickly. And when you invert the film like that, you realize just how powerful gravity is. So gravity is an extremely strong force on us. And so even for us to be sat here in the interview, we actually need to be quite well conditioned. If we'd just been up in space for the last 3 months, like the cosmonauts or anyone on the International Space Station, we wouldn't be able to do this. We'd be slumped in our chairs. We'd be struggling to stay upright. Okay. Wow. So this is the thing that, everyone has an athletic requirement. Now, of course, if you've got other sports, you've got perhaps more physical demands on you, then, that's even more what we might think of as an athletic requirement. But the point really is that an athlete, and when you think about working with an athlete, you think about working across normally a season, and that would be called a macro cycle. So in terms of the concept that's used is periodization, which is kind of timetabling, right? And so we use this concept of periodization with corporate leaders as well. So we see them as an athlete. We say, okay, we're going to do a macro cycle with you. And that allows us to say, well, where do you want to be in 1 year's time? Okay. Right. If you think of an Olympic athlete, as you said, the Olympics are on, well, they've got to think about where they're going to be in 4 years' time. So they're on a 4-year cycle. And so the periodization for an Olympic athlete is, you're going to look at what various games there are across those 4 years, where we want them to peak, where we want them to relax a little bit, so that they allow both the stress on the body, and their body can handle that stress, and then we allow the recovery. So it's always there's a bit of a yin and yang, push and pull type scenario. And so we can do that with corporate leaders as well. So look where their demands are likely to be, where they can have more downtime, and get that balance right, because without balance, we burn out. Okay. Yeah. So there's that element to it. But then there's also the fact that with any kind of athletic requirement, you need to get the foundations right. And so in something like a macro cycle, which is, like I say, a season typically, or a year, what you'll do is you'll break it down into mesocycles, which tend to be maybe 8-week or 6-week blocks. And then you can break that further down into microcycles, which may be 2 to 4 week blocks. And so what we do with the coaching is we look at, okay, well, what's the highest priority? Where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck in the first 2 to 4 weeks? And it may be, let's say, nutrition, or it may be sleep. Okay, so how can we optimize this person's sleep? What different factors do we need to consider to optimize that? Because that's where they're going to get the biggest gains. Okay, or it may be exercise. It may be hydration. They might be terrible, sort of constantly on the coffee and having a beer in the evening to wind down, and they're not hydrated. And dehydration can impact on so many different things in terms of performance. So what we do is we prioritize. So we take a look, we identify which are the key areas, normally just 1 to 4 areas to get started, and then we build across a period of time into what in athletic terms would be called initially foundation conditioning. So that's kind of like building your foundations, or base conditioning, it's sometimes called. Then we go into transition. Okay, so transition is where you're starting to move towards higher performance, and then you've got your performance conditioning beyond that. So we use that same model to work with the corporate athlete.